No, I think it's what I recognize.
I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to make a quick announcement before we move into roll call. A couple people are going to be moving chairs in for our guests tonight, so if we could just go ahead and stay quiet during roll call, that'd be great.
Adams.
Here.
Albers. Here. Armstrong.
Here.
Arnoldi.
Here.
Belk.
Here.
Bergston. Bothwell.
Here.
Bowen.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
T. Moranville. Dunfield.
Here.
Esses.
Here.
Fang.
Here.
Filbert. Gammon.
Here.
Gillian King.
Here.
Grover.
Here.
Gupta. Hammond.
Here.
Harp.
Here.
Heatherman.
Here.
Hildreth.
Here.
Huffman. Javin.
Here.
Karamali.
Here.
Kidd. King.
Here.
Kulkarni.
Yes.
Leverett. Mari. Marshall.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Niedery. Orth.
Here.
Orzakowski.
Here.
Pelton. Penny.
Here.
Porter. Riffle.
Here.
Roman.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Spellman.
Here.
Spencer.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Tile.
Here.
Taylor. Thompson.
Here.
Chumland.
Here.
Wessel.
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
Whitmer.
Here.
And Yogunadun.
Here.
Okay, is there anybody I missed with all the chair shuffling and everything?
Kid is here. Kid is here.
And then Pelton, too.
Pelton.
Help is here too.
Perfect. I'll get you guys down.
Sorry.
That's 44. And then 5 excused. Okay, real quick, we'll do directors as well. Boyd.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Gertson.
Here.
Jennings.
Here.
Pick.
Here.
Lundeen.
Here.
McIntosh.
Here.
McKenzie. Minu. Picer.
Here.
Sedlacek.
Here.
Tuttle.
Here.
Underwood.
Here.
Valdez.
Here.
And Works. All right, and the last thing we're going to do here real quick is interns. Almadani.
Here.
Booz.
Here.
Bruno. Carr. Colasico.
Here.
Car's here too. Sorry about that.
Colburn.
Here.
Galloway.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Glessner. Gross.
Here.
Heimerman.
Here.
Hines.
Here.
Hobbs.
Here.
Jonak.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Kimsey. Neasley. Coleman.
Here.
Matos.
Here.
Middleton. Mohan.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Oxner.
Here.
Peterson. Phillips. Rice.
Here.
Quevedo. Schrader.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Sytek.
Here.
Slider.
Here.
Wallace. And Willis.
Here.
All right, we have 44 senators present, 5 senators excused, and 5 senators absent.
All right, we'll now move into first open period. As a quick announcement and reminder for our existing SGA members, open period speakers are getting 10 minutes to speak during their speech, and there will be 5 minutes afterwards for question and answer. Any student who wants to ask a question can and should, but students who aren't involved in SGA will just have to have an SGA member defer them speaking rights. So by all means, feel free to raise your hands. So with that, our first open period speaker tonight is Pat Bosco, our Dean of Students.
Good afternoon. If it's okay, Ryan, I'll go ahead and forego any statements and just answer questions. Is that okay? Questions you may have about a statement and about a situation we've been going through as a university family for a couple of days now. You know about it, so go ahead and any questions you may have. Yes. Is that okay?
Caucus Leader Sullivan.
All right. Either way, I don't think this guy is going to feel safe. I don't think he's safe in a community that rushes this off with what seems to be barely any investigation and calls it a hoax. And he's not safe during a thorough investigation in a community with people that would send him these messages. How do we keep our students safe and at the same time go through a thorough investigation?
As an institution, we're doing everything we can to be transparent, and it is difficult. As an open public state university that cares about every single student, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's been a long couple of days, not only for one individual, but for the entire university community. We want to take every action we can to make sure everyone is safe as part of our family. We can't be responsible for every action, but we want to make sure that we do what we can to make sure that we have every student is protected, and that's all part of our ability to respect and understand that mistakes happen, that people are human, and that I pledge the fact that we will do everything we can to keep everybody safe, as reasonable as we can. You have a follow-up.
The wording in the press release is pretty vague. Can you confirm that the student who reported it and the student who posted the note are said to be the same person?
When the police made an investigation and found that no law had been violated, they turned the matter over to Student Life. And we are looking at proceedings as outlined in your SJA Constitution, and we're in the middle of that process right now. I can't confirm or deny who's involved. The proceedings are confidential, and you'd want them that way.
Further questions? Senator Marshall.
Thank you for coming. I was wondering, assuming that the student who did it like as a joke, it's pretty apparent that this is very detrimental to not only Black students on campus, but students of all like multicultural backgrounds. And I was just wondering if it's found that he was doing this as a joke to himself for some reason. Could you share with us maybe what administration plans on doing about it?
Let me talk about a general nature first. We took this incident very seriously, and so did you. Hours, investigations, meetings with students, and resources throughout the campus were dedicated to the investigation. So we're not assuming anything at this point. I can tell you that as per I mentioned, the police had an investigation, found no law had been violated, and we're now looking at the student court system, which is part of your SJA Constitution. That's a delegated responsibility that comes from the president. You have three branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Judicial branch doesn't look for business. As members of the executive branch or the legislative branch, you're looking to solve problems. Your judicial branch works just as hard, but behind the scenes in a confidential way, weighing information and trying to make the best decision possible. And that's what they'll be doing now. Follow up? You okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Further questions? Jonathan Rodriguez. If someone in SGA could maybe defer their speaking rights, Senator Wilhelm.
I defer my speaking rights.
Good evening, Dr. Marshall. Thanks for coming out tonight and speaking to us. For all you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Rodriguez, sophomore studying electrical engineering. I just came here tonight with some concerns because I've been hearing around from like people on campus who know the person personally, and they showed me messages of like him asking, like people asking him like, "What's going on? Did you do this?" And from what like the text said, it's like basically said that he didn't do it, what he said. And, you know, quote unquote, he said, I don't know, man, it's K-State. I don't want to fight either K-State or campus police. So I'm just concerned to, like, what that means and what's going on.
All I can tell you is exactly what I know. There was an investigation by our campus police that took it very seriously, as you'd expect us to, and they found no violation of the law, but they turned it over to Student Life and our student health system. What's been said, not said, I can't respond to that. You couldn't expect me to respond to that. I won't.
Further questions? Director Valdez?
Going back to a question that was asked earlier about how to keep students safe, I personally don't feel like you answered that question to the satisfaction of the body or to any minority student on campus. So can you list like very concrete steps on how you're going to keep students safe?
When you think about, it's just not our students of color. We got comments from across the academy, from parents and family members concerned about students on campus. We had 300 prospective students on the campus just yesterday, and we responded as forthrightly as we possibly could. Safety is the #1 issue of our campus. You know that. We have law enforcement, we have cameras, we have each and every one of us committed to one another. There's just so much a university family can do with 23,000 students. Most of it is making sure that when we see something, we report it. When things don't feel right, we tell somebody about it. And we rely on law enforcement or rules and regulations of the university that oftentimes is honorable and is based on our honor. And that's no different than any other community. I can't guarantee safety, and I'd be shameful if I tried. I think we're all vulnerable. We're all in a position where anything can happen any time. We want to minimize risk, common sense, be in a position where we don't take anything for granted.
Thank you.
Further questions? Senator Roman.
Hi, Dr. Bosco. When you keep saying that campus police found no violation, what exactly do you mean by that?
There was no law violated, no state or federal law, city ordinance. By the posting of a note on a door in an organized living group, there wasn't a law violated. Nothing they could prosecute. That's my understanding.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we extend the speaker's time for questions by 10 minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time for questions by
Vote on that.
10 minutes. If there are no objections, you have 10 more minutes for questions. Senator Albers.
And if I'm speaking right, to Cynthia Carranza.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Carranza. What are you going to do in order to ensure that students are safe on this campus, and that student who found that note on his door, even though it's not found in violation of any law, like, that was a hate speech, that was hate that was posted on his door, you know, and he's living in the university apartment. So what is going to be done to help him beyond student life?
Let me say that it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we're safe. We've got to take care of one another. I can't guarantee everyone's safe in any organization or any activity, any facility, but we're going to follow due process. We're going to follow our process outlined in your SGA Constitution. We want to make sure we're consistent in our enforcement of our code of student conduct, and that means due process, and let the process work itself out. Go ahead, follow up.
As a member of the Student Review Board, I do understand the student code of conduct and due process and the need for privacy within cases like this. My concern is directly toward you. Like, we've had these incidences occur on and off campus, and while they're not directly related to the university, how are we as a university going to, what are you going to do for us? Well, we know what we can do for each other, but what are you going to do for us?
I'll continue to be accessible, be a person that's visible, and do everything I can to enforce our policies, our rules and regulations to the best of my ability.
Further questions? Senator Cole.
My question is, what is K-State doing to dismantle these systems of hate that are clearly being shown through what's going on right now? What is K-State doing? What are you doing?
We're not doing enough, and I need your help, everyone in this room. We established a new procedure during orientation enrollment. During Wildcat warm-up, we went ahead and instituted an entirely new program for 700 new freshmen. Many of you were part of Wildcat Dialogue. About 900 students went through a program that was intentional in terms of helping us create a better understanding of our community. We've raised about $6 million in need-based scholarships. That means we've responded to about this much of our need for our students and families. I need this much, so we have a ways to go. We're at the point where, as you know, the program statement phase of a multicultural student center, a project that a few months ago was tenable at best, and now we have a program statement and about 75% of the money raised. And tomorrow we'll have a major donor on the campus to make a point of making that happen. I think about the new programs we have with Project Impact, the programs we have with the Kauffman Scholars Program, the Koch Discover Scholarship Program, complement programs like the SHIELD program, relatively new programs, some programs that have continued. You know, we're building on a legacy of people like Verl Schweitzer and Myra Gordon and others that have come and have provided great leadership for us, and we're continuing to build on our commitment to diversity and inclusion. We have a ways to go. We announced a record Hispanic enrollment this fall. I want to improve graduation rates of all of our students. I want to improve the ability for everyone to feel safe on our campus and welcoming. These incidences, had a chance to address the BSU meeting this last Tuesday night. And I said the same thing there. To think that these incidents will never happen is difficult. There's always something out there that we can't dictate the incident, but we can dictate how we respond. And I hope that you look beyond this and begin to continue our efforts in improving our entire university family. I'm not going to stand here and apologize for when Bosco talks about family. We're not perfect. We're not. We all have a chance to improve and to get better. And that's what this place is all about. That's why we work every single day. It's why you spend your time as elected officials or as allies or individuals working in student organizations. It's not to make you the best student senator, the best student body president. We're here to make you a citizen of the world, to help us move forward in terms of our commitment, to make this place a better place so it can be a role model for any school and any organization in America today.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Spencer.
I'd like to differ my speaker. I'm not sure what your name is.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bruce. I'm a freshman here at K-State. I have a question. So I appreciate the efforts of needs-based scholarships and the enrollment update for Latino American students, but my question then becomes, since these incidents have happened time and time again, like the cyclical nature of this has continued to happen, what is being done with our policy on race and hate crime? Because you mentioned before that the crime that happened at the student's door wasn't any violation of law. However, what's the policy on campus for race and hate crimes?
We're using right now our Code of Student Conduct that's outlined in the SGA Constitution for that very purpose. The policies addressing specifically language right now is being debated between the attorneys and several members of our university family. As much as we find words repugnant, it's difficult in a public state university to begin to regulate language. And that's an issue that we're continuing to wrestle with. And I want to be very candid with you. It's a tough one. And it's on most college campuses, particularly public state universities. I'm not aware, for example, there was a movement about 4 or 5 years ago to deal with hate messages on college campuses. And to the best of my knowledge, all those codes were struck down as being unconstitutional. So I'd like to develop with you a policy that makes sense, that's a K-State solution. But right now, we're using our Code of Student Conduct, which is an existing policy and procedures outlined to help us be respectful of one another and your principles of community, which is an affirmation, not enforceable.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Sullivan.
I agree that I believe it is our job as a generation to try to challenge social norms. You said that like a while ago. I'm just kind of going back to that. It is our job as a generation to challenge social norms, to try to get the amount of hate that's in our society out of our society. My question for you is that, do you really believe it is our job as students to have to work to make this campus safe? Like that just doesn't sit well with me. I'm here to learn. It just doesn't sit well with me. Is that you really believe that?
I'll double up. I really believe it. I think it's all our responsibilities. Now, we have to have regulations. We have to have personnel in place. We can have all the cameras in the world, but we have to have each other's backs. We have to have each other's backs. And we see something that is wrong, we've got to stand up and say it's wrong to the right people to help correct it and make sure it never happens again. So I think we're all in this together. I think that's part of what's happening. Okay. I think it's part of what's happening in America today, that we're expecting others. We point and three fingers come back at us. I believe we're all in this together. I do. Maybe I do believe that. Sorry.
Further questions? Senator Cole.
So as a gay male on this campus, I find it very hard to believe that you expect it as my responsibility to ensure that I'm not going to be assaulted or physically, emotionally assaulted, whatever, on this campus.
Yes.
I very much disagree with the fact that you believe it is my responsibility to believe that I need to be safe here. So what is K-State doing to make sure that I, as well as my friends of color, are safe here at K-State?
I'm sorry if I was too strident. I just believe that we're all in this together. That as a gay man, I want to make sure you know that I care about you and the institution cares about you, and we want you to be successful and welcomed here. If there's an incident, I want to be able to respond to it. But I also want to put educational programs together that will make sure that never happens, that we're enlightened, that we're in a position where we can make a difference every single day, not only in the classroom but outside the classroom, in this building, and in every building and every walkway on our campus. So part of it is that I need to know. And I need to be able to not only respond, but anticipate so it never happens again. I guess that's what I mean. That I don't want you to feel like you're alone, but on the other hand, I don't want to be in a position where we can be all things to all people. I want to be realistic. I'm sorry, I do. I think we're part of a society that has to have each other's backs. You should never be alone. You should never be alone. Not here, not at K-State.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Please.
And if I can interject really quickly, I would encourage all of us in our questions to keep them questions and not points of debate. Thanks. Follow-up granted.
So you mentioned educational programs. What is K-State doing to make sure that those educational programs are not the burdens of those who are marginalized here at K-State?
I think we have to move. I do feel that we rely on students an awful lot here. That's part of the shared governance philosophy that we've inherited. It's part of what attracted me here in the 60s. So you're right in that we ask students oftentimes to roll up their sleeves and help us define the answers to questions. I can't apologize for that. That's part of the culture. That's why you wear purple. That's why why there's every chair in this room is filled. There are student governments that have no interest, no connection with the entire student body. Look at this room. So it's a double-edged sword. It's creating ownership and relying on individuals who know what really needs to be done rather than having people that are far away from the problem. So if I'm going to be criticized, I do ask students to roll up their sleeves and help us define solutions to problems. It's part of what I believe in as your dean. So if I'm guilty of that, I say yes, I am. That's part of what we have students that help us solve problems every single day. And on other campuses, frankly, it all comes down from somewhere in administration, and that's not been our philosophy. So I do ask for your help. I do try to listen. And I say I mean our administration, our faculty governs as well.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Spencer.
I'd like to defer my speaking.
Okay, again, Chair Bruce. My question is now, so we've seen a couple incidents in the past happen before where students have reported racial hate crimes happen to them. So what is K-State doing to ensure that once I report a crime that may or may not have happened to me, that I will actually get a fair and just trial? What can we do to ensure that I won't feel unsafe and just hide it because you just put my head down and keep going fast?
All I can do is by example. I'm here this evening. Probably the lawyers didn't want me to be here, and I'm here to be candid with you, to be able to be as transparent as I possibly can. Now, I can't predict an outcome, but I can predict it will follow policies, and we take incidences that happen on our campus very seriously. And this is one of the incidences that is an example of that.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator King.
Move to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time for questions by 10 minutes. If there are no objections, you have 10 more minutes. Further questions? Caucus Leader Spencer.
So you said that, like in the past, campuses have tried to make policies regarding these hate crimes, or hate speech, make that against them. So are we still going to try to do something about that? Because I feel like that's just completely unacceptable for someone to be able to post a note like that and then get away with it.
Okay. First of all, we're in a process of adjudicating that situation. Okay. So to say, well, I can't say whether anything's going to happen right now, but we're following the process. And that's important that you recognize that, and it's your process. So we're doing that. That's all I can say right now. And I don't know how the outcome is going to be. That's part of what we're all about in terms of the process.
Further questions? President Keel.
Can I defer my speaker rights?
Hi, my name is Deja Jones, and my question is sort of, can you be more transparent about the process that's currently going on? Like you keep mentioning, so like a supposed process, but as far as students, we would like to know the actual process and the steps that are being taken place.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's outlined in your SGA Constitution. It's on your bylaws. You know, it's not something that everyone reads, but it's there under your judicial branch, and you can see very specifically a process that's outlined that we're going to follow. I know it's not great reading, but now everyone will kind of pull to it and be able to educate yourself on a judicial branch of your government, that they work just as hard as the legislative branch, believe it or not, or the executive branch. It's just that oftentimes they're not visible. They're not visible. So it's outlined. It gives a chance for students to have their incidences heard, grievances heard. And in this case, and other cases regarding potential violations, it is a confidential proceeding, and the results won't be announced, at least not by the university.
Further questions for the speaker? Senator King.
I move to extend my speaking rights for Jacques Kadira.
My question is in regards to the Multicultural Student Center that potentially could be a target for more of these types of acts. What design features are going to be in place to prevent that from happening in the future?
We had a chance to see the very initial drawings of the building. I think they're going to be something, I think the building itself would be something we've never had on our campus before. It's going to be a symbol of our commitment to a welcoming environment. Now, what's going to happen in the facility in terms of security and safety, probably the kinds of things we might have in this facility. We don't announce all the things we have in this facility, but we do what we can to help keep all of our facilities safe. Part of the features of our center is we'd like to have 24-hour access. That's a unique part of what we'd like to see happen. Also, the planning group, our students have asked for a facility that's standalone. So there are some features we'll have to put in there to make sure that doors are locked and secured, much like maybe leadership studies in terms of the codes that they use. But I'll tell you, there's never enough in terms of safety for any open facility. And I hope that we aspire to have that kind of culture within the Multicultural Center. That help?
Further questions? Senator Brown.
So we've talked some about safety, and I know you mentioned the cameras, and I was wondering, personally, I don't feel safe walking on some parts of campus, and I believe Jardine does not have cameras. I was wondering if there would be any money or funding that would be used or could be considered to go towards adding more lighting, possible cameras on campus that would not be funded by student dollars.
It is my understanding that we have a standing policy that if there's an area on campus that you feel is not lit appropriately, we want to make sure that it's lit appropriately. So if there's an area on campus that somewhere along the line vegetation has creeped in, or maybe we've had some construction projects that we've missed some lighting, let us know, okay? Because I'd like to move aggressively to make sure that we have lighting on the campus. In terms of cameras, we're installing more cameras than ever before, and it's a technology that continues to disappoint me because sometimes there are cameras where I need them to have them there and they're not. So it's an expensive proposition to have cameras, and oftentimes the cameras are after the fact. They're not there to prevent. They're there for investigative purposes, so they don't do all the things you expect them to do. We probably need to invest more money in cameras on the campus, but I also need a lot of other things too. I need more academic advisors. We need more sections in specific academic programs. Our financial aid office is not where it needs to be physically or staff-wise. We've talked about other needs on the campus, and that's all going to be taken into consideration. And frankly, your student leadership has a chance to weigh in on some of those kinds of things. It's a matter of priorities. Where would you like your emphasis to be? But lighting ought to be one of them.
Further questions? Intern Glasscock.
So I'd like to reframe in a question an earlier topic we were discussing. Do you believe that the primary onus for this university to ensure protection and safety for the students and everyone here, should that onus fall on the administration or the student body?
Sure, on everyone. Everyone has a role in terms of safety. We ought to be in a position where we're constantly looking out for one another. That's what a family does. It's not just one person or one entity. And when we start thinking about one person's in charge of safety or one entity, then we all lose. We ought to always be looking out for one another. We need that kind of an emphasis throughout the campus. I can't imagine it being any other way. You see something that's wrong, let people know about it. Let law enforcement, let the administration, let someone in authority know about it. If there's a grievance, let us try to address it within policies and procedures. That we can't ignore things that are wrong. And that's all I'm saying, that we have to all have eyes. That's part of being part of something special above and beyond yourself. Want to follow up?
Follow up?
Wait, do you disagree with that? Help me out.
I'm not disagreeing, no.
I'm just saying.
Can I
try to be real.
Can I ask a clarifying?
Sure.
So you do believe that partially that onus should fall on the student body then to ensure safety?
And everybody. We ought to be walking around making sure. Today I saw a young lady with no socks and shoes on carrying a box in the snow. I stopped and said, "Hey, can I help you?" Why wouldn't anybody stop and say, "Wait a minute now, you don't have the right footwear to walk across the campus"? Why wouldn't we do that? That's part of what family is all about. You see something that's not quite right or something you can respond to it.
Further questions? President Keel.
And for my speaking rights.
Deja Jones again, and I would just like to, I don't know, ask for more clarification on the question about safety, because I do understand the analogy that you use. But as far as incidences where it comes to like sexual assault or racism, should students be like accountable for those issues when we're on campus and giving you our money?
We need to know about those issues, and we need to respond. That's what I'm saying, is that often campus assaults are the least reported crime on a college campus. Date rape is notoriously the least reported crime on a college campus. The only way we're going to eradicate it is make sure that we understand what consent is all about, we educate, and then when something happens, we respond as quickly and as meaningful as we possibly can. And the same thing with other kinds of assaults on our students.
Further questions, President Keel?
Dr. Bosco, could you, I think, maybe clarify between once a student is looking out for another student and makes that report, what the process is between on the university side of what all goes into responding to that? I think maybe that's the clarification.
It depends on the incident or the situation. If it's a sexual assault, we want to make sure the police are involved, because the most difficult part of any kind of a sexual assault is to have a criminal investigation and to have that immediately. And that goes to law enforcement, and then we have a specific office that is put aside that's part of the administration, the Office of Institutional Equity, that deals specifically with assaults, both students, faculty, and staff. If it's a racial incident, we're using our student conduct for students, and we have a policy for faculty and staff. It goes through Human Services, Human Capital. So we have policies and procedures in place to respond to specific instances, and we take all of them seriously, as in this instance.
Further questions? Senator Roman.
I defer my speaking rights to Ren.
I basically wanted to ask about how you were saying how we should treat each other like family, and like how you wanted to help the girl, whatever. But what do we do about the people who may not see other students as family? Because I feel like that's actually probably a more critical part of the problem.
We have to begin right at the beginning when someone applies to our university and they understand that we're a different kind of place. And that means all of us understanding that we want to be a different kind of place. I can't give you a magic wand. I think it's through education, through critical conversations like the one we're having right now, conversations that are real, to have faculty that are open to new ways of presenting material that challenges us, to have books that make a difference in our lives, to be intentional as we get outside our comfort zone. I talk about moving from tolerance to genuine appreciation of those who think, act, look, act, have different lifestyles. That's important. That's in and outside the classroom. So I think it begins when a student walks on our campus to look at us for the first time. As well as how we respond to specific instances and how we prevent them. And I think education is part of it. I believe that education is part of it. But also enforcement of our rules and regulations has to be part of it as well. There are consequences.
Director Lundin.
I may have missed this earlier, but I agree with you that we as a student body need to help everyone. Is there a direct and tangible way that you would like us to go about doing that?
I genuinely believe that the way we treat one another, how we walk across the campus, how we look for someone who maybe be outside a circle, that we want to make sure that we're as inclusive, that we be intentional as we possibly can to include everyone in everything that we're doing, that we look for ways to person to person do what we can to make sure everyone feels welcome. And it means that respecting one another in sessions like this, where we have a chance to express all kinds of points of view, and that everything has to be respected, And I think it's a way we respond to instances like this. I think that's the beginning. Second, I think we have to put ourselves in a position where we have stronger educational programs. The fact that we only had 700 students go Wildcat warm-up that were touched by the educational program that many of you helped us put together for 700 students. Well, Bosco, we had 3,800 new students. What about them? The fact that we had 900 students go through Wildcat Dialogue. We got 22,000 students. So what about them? That we have to gear up and do more. And we're pledged to do that. Can't do it alone, and it takes time, but we're making progress. I think we're making more progress than schools like us.
Time for questions is expired. Is there a motion to extend? Chair Carpenter.
I move to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes. Are there any objections? All right, seeing none, you have 10 more minutes. Further questions? Follow up, Director Lundin.
Is there anything that we could do as SGA? Is there any policies that we could enact?
You allocate $20 million of student activity fee money. I would be as intentional as you possibly can to move the needle on retention and recruitment programs. It's not enough for us to do what we're doing right now in the areas of intentionally helping everyone graduate. Okay, we improved our graduation rates from 57% to 64%. 6-year graduation, best in the state. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. We have certain cohorts of our student body that are not achieving graduation. I would invest in your $20 million and use that as intentionally as you possibly can to drive programs that are helping us move the needle on success here at the university. That's something the student government can do. Now, that's not going to be easy because you got all kinds of programs and activities. I'm just saying that would be one way.
Further questions, Chair Spellman?
I yield my speaking rights to Kaylee McLaughlin.
Okay. So on November 2nd of 2017, President Meyer sent a letter to the student body saying that he was asking Cindy Bontrager, the Vice President for Finance and Administration, to conduct a complete audit of security cameras on our Manhattan campus and to develop a plan to improve our coverage. And then they will review the security plans and improve as needed. What were the results of that audit and what kind of actions have been taken since then?
I can only tell you in terms of student life that we've put more cameras in some of our facilities. We've improved our technology, but I don't know about the university. I don't. That would be something you could ask Vice President Bontrager about. Okay. And specifically, we've put more cameras in child care facility, in the rec center. We've improved the technology of this building through our renovation. Mr. Elmore can respond to that in terms of the union. Those are the facilities I can talk about. I don't know about the rest, and I just don't know.
Further questions? Cox Belk.
Hi. So around this time last year, I confided in someone that I was considering transferring because of the racial incidents that happened. And you heard about that, and you sent me a personal note that said, stay strong, we want you here at K-State. So I'm considering transferring again. So what are you going to write to me this time?
Did it work the first time?
I only stayed because of the scholarships that I had that paid off my whole first year, but this year I have loans, so.
I will do what I can in terms of meeting you individually, going over your specific situation. I probably meet, as you know, several students every single day that have problems or concerns. Not that they're at the point where they'd like to leave, but they're struggling with finances or personal problems or obstacles in and outside the classroom that I try to address. When I say I mean our staff. Sometimes it's a faculty or dean that intervenes. So I would be as personal as I possibly can to listen and try to respond. Not believing that I can solve every challenge that every student has, but I try. And I would try in your case again in a meaningful, sincere way.
Further questions? Intern Hines.
Dr. Bosco, I'm looking at the Policy and Procedures Manual, Chapter 3010, specifically .01 about the policy prohibiting discrimination and harassment, etc. A, prohibited conduct suggests that discrimination and harassment based on race, color, ethnicity, etc. is prohibited, and specifically definitions under harassment in .020, definitions B, harassment. In the work on campus housing or other non-academic environments, harassment is conduct toward a person or persons based on race, color, ethnic, or national origin, etc. A, has a purpose or effect of creating intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment or on-campus housing environment for those persons, or unreasonably interfering with the work or on-campus housing of the persons. And B, is sufficiently severe or pervasive that alters the terms, conditions, and privileges of a person's employment, use of on-campus housing, academic opportunities, etc. Would this incident be a violation of this policy?
It could be. It could be. And that's part of the investigation. It's part of the process we're going through. It could be. I do believe, from what I know about the circumstances, that the code of student conduct may be the best way to adjudicate the matter. But I'm not prohibiting the BM 30 that you cited. I'm just saying that we have a process in place and we're following. You follow.
Can you specifically say where at in that process you are and exactly what that process is for those of us in this room that aren't as familiar with the process because we're new to campus, or those who aren't directly involved with SGA so that they actually understand what this process that you keep referring to as the process is?
And I want to call your attention to your own constitution. It's outlined in your bylaws. It starts on page 22, goes about 7 pages, outlines definitions, and goes through a very specific process. I think you're familiar with that, and I'm just saying that rather than reciting it, it's there. It starts on page 22 of your bylaws, and it's outlined very specifically. 3 pages of definitions.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too, we're asking our Attorney General to come in to try to explain that process to us because it's been mentioned a couple times tonight. So when he gets in here, we'll have him to explain that. But in the meantime, Director Boyd.
My question is, are there any plans to reform the campus police department in a way that makes students more comfortable with reporting issues?
If you feel that we need to look at our campus police department, then I think you look at your student government leadership and provide an opportunity for us to have focus. I want to let you know that we're respectful of the student government process, and if you feel there's a challenge there, I'm sure that we'll look at our campus police. Now, I can't tell you of a specific instance where there's a challenge. I know that when we've had a complaint, we've also taken it very seriously about our police department. Now, so if there's a challenge, then give us a chance through a resolution to establish a process where we can improve communication or improve law enforcement on our campus, or to learn more about the training that our campus police go through, their own licensing, and their interactions with our students. Let's look at it. I mean, and do it formally with your student government resolution. And I'm sure administration would respond affirmatively. There was an incident that I know of about a year or so ago. An officer was suspended with pay during an investigation, and it was adjudicated. I just know of the one. There might be others. I just know of one that was taken very seriously. Does that help you? I'm sorry, I don't.
I'll follow up later.
Further questions? Intern Oxner.
Yeah, Dr. Bosco, thank you so much for coming here tonight and speaking with us. And like Director Lundin said, I agree with you that this is a shared responsibility between students here in the Student Government Association and university administration. So just to build off of what Lane said, what do you think, in your opinion, is the best route moving forward for us? What can we do to improve the situation of students? What do you think, in your opinion, is the best route for us to take in the days moving forward?
continue to have discussions like this and look for ways where there's kinks in the armor and help us respond as best we can. Some of us are, and again, I'm not defining a problem right now. Help us define the specific problem and let us try to solve it. This gentleman mentioned about campus police, and another is about our policies and procedures and have them more widely known. We'll do everything we can to roll up our sleeves and try to keep this campus in a position where we continue moving forward. We're not perfect.
Thank you.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Heatherman.
Do you believe that student dollars in excess of tuition should have the shared responsibility of providing safety measures as well as retention efforts?
I don't know where else the money will come from. Okay, we're raising dollars now for lots and lots of student initiatives. Every day we're raising dollars. Matter of fact, we just left a reception this evening with corporate leaders to talk about specific activities that we need to sponsor student success on our campus. And tomorrow we'll have another group here on the campus to talk about how they can help us with private funds to do all the things we need to have happen. There are really two major sources of funding at the university. One is tuition, and the other is what we receive from the legislature. If we're looking for a challenge, ladies and gentlemen, we need help from our legislature. What happened this Tuesday in the election could have a significant impact on the quality of the educational experience here. There's no magic dust when you think about tuition and what we receive from the legislature, and again, what we raise privately. That's it. So it's the priorities of our school, and the neat part is we have students involved in the process of how we establish those priorities. And you're indicating that campus safety is one of those priorities. You have to take that priority and put it against all the other kinds of things that are happening on the campus. And you want leadership to establish priorities. We can't be all things to all people. And the pie is only this big. Now you can say, let's make the pie bigger. Well, that would be a discussion in terms of raising tuition, raising fees, or receiving more money from the legislature. And having this university, the number one choice among Kansas high school graduating seniors, to be a higher priority in terms of funding as we think in terms of legislative actions.
Further questions? Director Valdez.
So 4 years ago, a story broke about sexual assaults on campus that occurred at a fraternity, and the administration's response was to distance themselves from the problem. How did that show support for family?
We clarified the role the university has with what happens inside an organized living group off the campus. A living group that is owned and operated by alumni and oftentimes a national organization. An organization that we have no standing with. We don't control membership, budget. You don't want the university involved in activities of a fraternity. And for us to stand up on a pedestal and say we can do something in an organized living group that's owned and operated by individuals off the campus is a myth. And yeah, we took a legal stance to say what other campuses are now looking at, that let's put the responsibility on the chapter. Let's put and what happens inside the chapter, just like it always is. You know, I'm not an academician. I was a member of a fraternity here. I was a chapter officer. I was a chapter advisor for 20 years. I was on a national board. So I get the separation. And what we've done is clarified that separation. Now, do we still care about our students in terms of victims? Absolutely. Absolutely. We take care of victims. But in terms of promising that we're going to be able to adjudicate an incident where we have no jurisdiction, we have no power, it sets up a false expectation that's not fair to my students and the people that we serve. I want the responsibility to be the individuals in that chapter house, living up to the principles and the bonds that they pledged themselves to. So yes, I'm putting the responsibility exactly where it should be. And it always has been there. That's how, I mean, that's what this system has been, why it's so strong. It's because we've had men and women that step up and take care of business.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator King.
Move to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time for questions by 10 minutes. Are there any objections? All right, if not, you have 10 more minutes. Intern Mohan.
Thank you, Dr. Bosco, for being here. I'm a senior here at K-State, and I'm struggling to find how we've educated students on diversity and inclusion in and out of the classroom, as you said. Could you clarify what you meant by that?
The last 4 or 5, I think last 4 out of 5 of our freshman books have been around diversity, inclusion, and equity. That was a purposeful opportunity for us to continue dialogue among our freshmen and our faculty, as hopefully they'd embrace a book that was specifically addressing diversity, inclusion, and equity. I think that's a beginning. Now, did all of the books capture the imagination of our students and our faculty? That's a question for our individuals who are in the CAT communities and leadership studies and our organized living groups and in classrooms where they adopted the book and it hopefully made an impact in terms of understanding and moving into action. We have 137 classes that have been rated or have been under the umbrella of competency. You may have taken some of those classes, and if they worked in terms of helping move the needle on a greater understanding and moved into action, then we're winners. As we look at corporations, and we're hosting them tonight and tomorrow, they're committed to diversity and inclusion and equity. And it's important that our students understand that corporations, school districts, government agencies are looking for individuals that get the global economy, that have demonstrated a commitment toward equity. And what I mean by that is it means being involved in organizations and activities that are making an impact on helping everyone rise. Put us in a position where we're different than when you came. That means your organizations. That means your classroom experiences. It means everything that you do. Now, have we moved the needle? I think we have. I'm looking at whether we'd have this conversation 4 or 5 years ago in this room. When we look at student employment, the number of students that are employed, we look at the graduation rates. We've graduated more students at this school than the history of our school in the last 3 years. That's probably one of the challenges of enrollment, that we've done so well increasing our graduation rates. So I believe very sincerely we've made progress. So we've made enough? No, we're not close. And I'm committed to doing what we can to move the needle.
Intern Scitek.
Good evening, Pat Bosco. I'm really happy you're here. I want to ask a question because this is happening in Jardine, and I feel like similar things could happen in the dorms, where RAs are the ones that need to step up and take control of these situations. How are RAs being trained to deal with scenarios like this to prevent, detect, and stop these types of
How many resident assistants do I have in the room? Raise your hand. Our resident assistants do a tremendous job. The one job I wish I had when I was an undergraduate here would have been an RA. I think we ask an awful lot of our undergraduate students to give them an extraordinary experience. Now, are they perfect? No. They've got a lot of other challenges in terms of going to school. We ask them to be advisors and rule enforcers. So I believe that we're going to do everything we can to strengthen the experience a student has in the residence hall. And oftentimes that resident assistant makes or breaks that experience. The training is extensive. It starts, as you know, before the individual is even selected to be a resident assistant. And we have ongoing training for our resident assistants, including an opportunity for them to enhance their experience by encouraging them to be there for that second year. So I don't know the specifics today of our RA training. I go in a couple of times to visit with them as a group, and appreciate my resident assistants. And if there's someone out there that, I ask freshmen, part of the leadership class, I asked them to write me a Dean Bosco note, an anonymous note. And I'm taken back by the number of personal examples our freshmen give of a resident assistant that has created a welcoming atmosphere. Now, maybe I've got some challenges out there in individual instances, but across the academy, I really appreciate my resident assistants and my staff assistants in our halls. 30 years ago, we had individuals running our residence halls that were not master's level. Now our residence halls are all run by master's level professionals that are dedicated to residence life, and that means it trickles down to training and a commitment to developing communities. Don't require freshmen to live on campus. We went to a Board of Regents meeting. We went to a Board of Regents meeting. They're all talking about, this school has you require freshmen to live on campus. Yes, you require and K-State doesn't. No, we never have. Don't require freshmen. Our residence halls are full every year, and I think part of it is having that welcoming environment and a commitment from our student staff as well as our professional staff.
Can I just add another?
Please, go ahead. Yeah.
One of our directors last year on cabinet actually conducted RA trainings with the different residence halls to create sessions with their students on their floors to have courageous conversations, things like we're talking about tonight with all their students to kind of start that conversation while they're in the residence hall and hopefully be able to kind of mitigate whether or not that was going to be a conversation that needed to continue to happen on the residence hall floor to continue to educate students and also create that community within their residence hall. So.
Thank you, Attorney. Your SGA Attorney General is here. Paid the big bucks, Peter.
Yes.
They've been waiting for you to explain process and procedures.
Yes. In the interest of time, we're going to ask our Attorney General, Peter Moyer, our Student Review Board Chair, Caitlin Struckle, and our Judicial Advisor, Andy Thompson, to come to the front. And Parliamentarian Moore is going to pull up the specific policy that we've been talking about that we're going to be following.
And if it's okay, I'll hang around for more questions. Is that okay? Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Are you on the bylaws? Or
yeah, what are you trying to look at? Code of Conduct is a separate document. Go to K-State, Judicial, and then Documents, Code of Conduct. It should be listed on the Office of Student Life website, but I haven't been able to get that fixed.
You guys can just talk about it.
Sure, I'm Peter Moore. I'm the KSU SGA Attorney General.
I'm Caitlin Struckle. I'm the Student Review Board Chair.
Yeah. And I'm Andy Thompson. I'm Senior Assistant Dean in the Office of Student Life, Director of Community Standards.
What question do you want me to answer first?
So there have been a lot of questions about what policy is going to be followed in regards to this investigation. And I know it goes through the Student Review Board. So if you guys could touch on how that process kind of looks like.
Go ahead. On the left.
On the side.
Student Code of Conduct.
I don't need to.
Sure. So when a report's initially filed, they can be a report can be started by anyone. So it could be a student, police officer, etc. The report's filed, and then we'll have a meeting with me, the Deputy Attorney General, and our advisor, and we'll decide if we have jurisdiction on it, which board it will go to, if it goes to tribunal, or we decide to have an administrative hearing, etc. Well, I'll get back to that in a second. And then we'll have the hearing with the board. If it does end up going to the board, there's always the option that it doesn't go to the board. And then the appeal, which will move to the student tribunal, and then the process is over. And that's only for a student code of conduct violation. With harassment and threatening behavior, there's a separate process.
Are there any questions for our judicial branch members? There's a lot of questions. President Keel.
Defer my speaking rights.
Can you explain the harassment policy? You said it's a different process.
I defer my speaking rights. So something to understand about how our policies are structured. So what's up here on the screen is our student code of conduct, right? And there's 22 line items there, and you can see that and read through that. And that's the jurisdiction that Peter and the student judicial branch have jurisdiction over, okay? We also have several other policies and procedures that sit here at the institution, all right? So Housing and Dining Services is gonna have their contract and their agreements that students sign as part of those living environments that they're in. We also then are going to have PPM 3015, which is our threat assessment, threat management policy that operates, and that one actually gives jurisdiction over faculty, staff, students, visitors, guests, whereas the code of conduct is just for our students, right? And there's some good, that's something to be made aware of what those policies can oversee. The threat assessment policy is done in a way that if we think there's a threat to campus, a physical threat to campus, right? And that is brought through primarily, if it's a student, going to be brought through the Office of Student Life with Dean Heather Reed, as well as a team of folks who get together, talk through that process, talk with that student, and then they would go through that process, okay? If it falls underneath PPM 3010, that sits underneath the Office of Institutional Equity, and that's our policy against harassment and discrimination, okay? So if it's dating, domestic violence, stalking, harassment, any of our sexual violence, and it's under a protected class. Now, that's a very lengthy policy that I think if you haven't read it, you should. And again, PPM 3010 covers our students, our faculty, our staff, our visitors, our guests, our vendors that are on campus, if we can, construction workers that are here on campus. That policy is going to be all encompassing of them. And so if there is harassment of a protected class, that's going to be the office that's going to take a look at that policy. And it has to be severe and pervasive, and there's all sorts of different check boxes I don't have memorized right off the top of my head, but that would be somewhere that you could take a look at that policy to kind of understand. And they're divided up that way so we can be more responsive as an institution and make sure that we're covering everyone's rights and responsibilities as we tackle some of these complicated issues.
Okay, so follow up. So what is so you mentioned like sexual assault and domestic violence, but where does race fall into those like that category, and how do we feel and or define whether or not that is?
If you went to the OIE policy, there's a paragraph of protected classes, and race is included within that. If you haven't read that policy, not to push it, but I mean it's probably 10 to 15 pages long, right? It's a pretty meaty. We're not going to be able to pull it up and just kind of read it as a group right now. But yes, race is absolutely included in that policy.
Okay. So how do you define whether or not you use that policy versus the student code of conduct? Because like in this instance of what's happening now, we're using the student code of conduct, but the harassment policy seems to have more of a function within it. So how do you define like the line that crosses that?
The biggest thing is if it's based on a protected class is going to be where that gets pushed through. So if it's harassment based on a protected class, that's going to go through the OIE process. Whereas if you just read through, if you read through our line item, you'll probably say, oh yeah, that doesn't fit here, that does fit here, or that'll go over here, or whatnot. And whenever we get a potential violation of one of those policies, now I say potential because there's processes that people have to be found accountable in, we will take a look at which policy that makes the most sense for that to funnel through, so it goes through the appropriate policy as we have it structured. Does that make sense? Okay.
Further questions for the judicial branch? Director Boyd.
Speaking rights to Rafael Garcia. As I understand it, a lot of the confidentiality of these proceedings is meant to protect the student in question. If a student were to waive their right to confidentiality, is there any reason as to why those disciplinary proceedings would stay confidential?
Do you mean student code of conduct or through PPM 3015?
Both.
You want to?
As an institution, if a student would like to have that out, and they want to make a statement on their own regard, that's up to them. So if a student wanted to call the Collegian and say, hey, I want to tell you everything that happened in my code of conduct hearing, I suppose they can do that. We, under FERPA, aren't going to just make a blanket statement about what happens in a disciplinary proceeding. If all of you potentially violated the code of conduct, you probably wouldn't want a newspaper article out there about what we did in a code of conduct hearing for you.
My question specifically is, if he were to waive that right, would there be access allowed to those hearings?
Board hearings are actually open to a certain extent. So our student review board hearings, if someone wanted to come and watch them, they can. The only parts that are open is during the introductions to say who's there. And then we also say what they're there for. We close it so everyone has to leave the room as we actually have the discussion with the student. And we open it back up to say if there's a violation or not, and then what the sanction is. So the actual back and forth with that student is not open. Administrative hearings are closed because it's an educational process that's going on, and under FERPA, we're not going to open that up.
Further questions? Intern Almadani.
Hi. What is usually the time frame of code of violation investigation?
Again, do you mean PPM 3015 or code of conduct?
So does it take a month? Does it take?
Can you tell me which one you're asking about? Either of them? Student code of conduct, I believe you have.
Similar to the one we're talking about today.
And I'm still trying to get your question correct. So you're talking about once it's reported, how long is there until the hearing happens? Okay, just wanted to get that clear. With student code of conduct, we have once the report is sent out to the student, so in that process, we get the report and then we send them a letter telling them that they're going to have a hearing. They have 72 hours notice that they need to be at this hearing. And then I don't know the time frame for PPM 3015. I think it's extended to almost.
Yeah, with the code of conduct, it's going to be 72 hours notice of the hearing, right? So I can't just call Jordan in right now and say, hey, tomorrow we're going to have a code of conduct, right? So there's 72 hours notice of that. Our board hearings are kind of at a set time. And so that process, if an incident happened right now in this room, the soonest we're going to do a board hearing is next Thursday, right? Now, obviously, with breaks and things of that nature, it could extend things out. But in the code process, it's going to be 72 hours notice to kind of move forward on anything there. In other process, if there's a 3015 threat to campus, we can move faster in that process to pull somebody in to make sure that we're addressing that in a timely manner to keep the campus safety, the physical safety of campus in check for students.
Follow up?
Yeah. Okay, so the hearing process has started. What is the time frame until you come with a conclusion, usually?
So it comes to conclusion.
Yeah.
We have 48 hours to give our decision to the respondent in that case. So a letter letting them know that. And then there's an appeal process that they can go through depending on if it's an admin hearing or the student review board hearing. They have 3 business days to appeal that, and then we hear that appeal, and then 48 hours notice on that. So, I mean, anywhere from a week to 2 weeks typically to kind of put the finishing touches on the final decisions of everything.
Excellent, thank you.
Time.
Time for our speakers has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Intern Booz.
Move to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes. Are there any objections? All right, seeing none, you have 10 more minutes. Further questions? All right, if not, are there any more questions for Dr. Bosco while he's still with us? Chair Spellman.
Are you on my speaking rights to Rafael Garcia?
And if we could, really quick, could we give a round of applause to our judicial branch for helping us out?
I don't have a question.
All right, are there any more questions for Dr. Bosco? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, our next open period speaker tonight is Dr. Jessica Elmore. She's with the K-State Alumni Association.
So let me just start. So my bedtime's at 8:30. I'm hurting, y'all. I'm hurting, but it's been great. Thank you for inviting me to come speak. When I got the message from Ryan, when I had the opportunity to come and speak, I said, well, what am I going to really talk about? And for some people who have had the opportunity to engage with me, I just felt like I want to just kind of be myself. So I don't have a position like Bosco, so I'm not tied to a lot of things. Doesn't mean I know a lot of things either, but I feel that the opportunity for my position to be in a role where I work here, but then I engage on campus so much and within the community, various communities, that I think there's some insight that I hope I have an opportunity to share as you guys are trying to figure out what are we going to do as a K-State community. So we have a situation that happened that currently is going through a process. And so what I'd like to ask first is, raise your hand if it's stressing you out. Okay. Who wants to share maybe why it's stressing you out? Okay. Ayana?
It's stressing me out because I'm African American and I also live in Jardine.
Okay, because you're African American and live in Jardine, yes.
It's stressing me out because I'm 10,000 miles away from home and I live on the same floor as where the incident occurred.
Okay, so proximity of where it happened. Who else wants to share why? Yes.
I'm first on campus, and this is my first year at a college university. I feel safe.
Okay, so first year, so unsafe.
I'm stressed because I know the person personally.
Okay, so knowing a person personally. So there's a couple things with that. Raise your hand if you want to be bold, if it's not stressing you out. It's not stressing me out. It's not stressing you out? Right. So the question is like, well, why isn't it stressing you out? Why is it not stressing me out? I mean, I'm African American too, right? So at least some people might say, well, you know, what is that? And I'd say that my not stressing out came from last year when the car situation happened. I had the privilege of reading a book. For those who don't know, I advise a sorority, so they hear me rant about books that I read all the time. And at that time, I was reading this book called Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. And I was enlightened because I had learned this term called uplift suasion. And you can Google it. I had never heard of what uplift suasion meant. But what the history behind uplift suasion was the responsibility of a Black community having to take responsibility of an individual's actions and where that came from. And I was just like, what? So in my mind, if I'm going to be real candid, when situations happen on the news, I'm like, ooh, is it a Black person? Because I just can't deal. When I go to work, I'm the only person of color there, or whatever the situation is, and I'm like, I don't know if I can handle the weight of that. And this is something I had experienced forever. And I've been told as I've been raised to, you know, make sure that you're a certain way and that you project and all the stuff that's in The Hate U Give, that the young lady talked about her being her, you know, star self at home and whatever. I was like, I know that, right? And the question is like, but what is that about? Why am I taking the responsibility personally as the weight for my community? I always want to say I don't speak for my community, but here I am, I'm taking it on. What is that about? And what I learned from the book is that it's society. It's been created. There are particular populations who don't have the privilege to operate as an individual. After 9/11 happened, those who identified as a Muslim, they had to take on that burden, right? Didn't mean it was them, but because there was some similarity, you might have taken it on. So as an African American person, somebody did something, especially if it was a Black man who did something to a white woman. What does that look like? What do I have to think about with my husband? Who's gonna, you know, all those kind of things that I'm like, I'm carrying this. So when this car situation happened, and I finally had words to put together about what this is, it talked about the need for the Black community to prove that they are not barbaric. They had to validate to the dominant culture that slavery did not make them an inhumane person. So when they became free, the idea was that you cannot survive in society because of your situation. And so they were given guidance to, if you can show the people that you're smart, if you can show the people that you know how to interact with people, if you can show the people that you're not criminals, some people may believe that, and you too could finally be a part of the community. Well, that's kind of bogus, because the idea is an entire community to be perfect. Now, who's perfect in here? Raise your hand if you're perfect. So nobody's perfect, but the expectation is to be perfect. And if one thing happens, you got to start over. So when I freed myself from the situation, because the person that did it, however you feel about it, the FBI said he said it, he did it, we gonna rock with that. He was black. It was like, oh, we've been working so hard, what is this gonna mean? All this stuff, we're gonna not be believed. And I said, not me. I said, I want somebody to say that to my face so that I can ask them, why? Why do you think that as a group of people? So what I would like to ask in this situation is, what assumptions did we have when the message came out about the note? Where did our brain go? What assumption did we make? How did we come to that conclusion of whatever that was in your head? If I'm gonna be real, could have been like, it's a white person, it's the person who had the Trump sign out on front of Jardine, it had to be, it's election, right? That could have been the assumption. If we want to be honest with, for some people are like, I don't know, who knows? Some parties would have said, they probably did it themselves because that's what happened last time. All these are assumptions. When we want to talk about what we're going to do at K-State, we need to check our assumptions. We all do. That has no face. Every single person has to check their assumptions. So you say, well, how are we going to do that? So here's a simple one for me. How many people celebrate Thanksgiving? Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. How many people don't? Okay, we got some, don't know. How many people have had a roll call question of, what do you have at Thanksgiving? Assumptions. No one asks, do you celebrate Thanksgiving first? They just assume that you do. Those are the little things. That's how assumptions creep in. Because if you don't, you internally are being put on Front Street that you're not similar in that group that you're in at that moment. And for those who are, I'm good. Let me tell you what I like. I didn't even think about somebody may not celebrate that. But then if you go a little deeper, you say, well, what do you like to eat? We did this. I advised our student alumni board. And we were at least smart enough to take the step to say, for our major holiday or celebration, what's your favorite food dish? Because we know that can be universal, right? So I hear things, stuffing, green bean casserole. And the reason why I bring that up is because I remember one time when I was in a car with some students and we talked about Thanksgiving food. And they said, well, I have the regular stuff. Regular? Well, what's that? Turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole. I was like, I ain't never had no green bean casserole. I don't know what pumpkin pie tastes like. That's not my Thanksgiving. But the assumption was made that their food is regular. So then that puts me out. Assumptions. So what do we do daily that pulls out assumptions? So if you want to fix that, you got to fix your language. You have to think about how are you wording questions that is either excluding or being inclusive. Because being inclusive doesn't mean me and Jordan are sitting at the table together. That's not what that means. Proximity doesn't mean inclusiveness. You could still ignore me and I'm still in the same space as you. Now, we can be fighting back and forth with that because it's hard. That means that I might have to give up something, or can we not talk about Thanksgiving? Can we not do these things? I mean, what about me? That's where we have to have the family conversation. That's what it means about family. I know how some people feel about family. And it's a word. Let's not get tripped up on the word. Let's get down to the situation. The situation is, yeah, there are some people who are not interested in me or you being here. Yeah, the situation is that somebody might have called me the N-word. But what I want people to understand is I'm not fragile. It's not the word that I'm bothered about. I'm stressed from the invisible pressure of having to be responsible for the community. That's what I'm stressed about. Not the incident, but what our social norm is at Kansas State University. And when you say, well, what about the social norms? Social norms are the invisible things that we say are appropriate actions in our space. And only community can change that. So I listened really intently about what is K-State gonna do about my safety? What is K-State gonna do about this? What is K-State gonna do about that? Am I really responsible? I paid all this money. I hear it all. But how do you change environment? Do you change environment with one person or with many? So when we have to figure out what are we gonna do, what are we gonna do? We gotta fix the environment. But unfortunately, everybody's not gonna agree on what that environment should be like. So we have to have wonderful conversations and real policies that have no emotion in them to be able to understand how we're gonna do this. And that's what I think that K-State is finally teed up and ready to do. Students are finally asking the core questions about what are we going to do? What are we gonna do about safety? Well, what does safety mean today? What does that look like? And what are our rules about that going to be? And how, as a community, are we gonna reinforce that? Because as a human, you wanna fit in the space that you're in. And the only way that you can fit in is if you kind of have the similar behaviors. People don't have the same behaviors as that social norm in that space, they don't fool with it. So if you got organizations, you say, why we ain't got no diverse people? Check your social norms. Check your social norms. And you say, well, do I have to change everything? No, but do you have the capacity to expand that and have it to where multiple social norms can exist in the same space? Austin does it, Seattle does it, LA does it. Why can't Manhattan? What's that about? I was joking the other day because I went to a BSU meeting and they had a song on. You know what you guys don't know, I have a little bit of ratchet in me. And so they were playing the song Nuck If You Buck. Now some people might say, I don't know that, that's not a part of your social norm, but it is so a part of my social norm. That is so a part of my undergraduate experience. So I'm coming in, Dr. Elmore, whatever, knock if you buck, hey, you know, just in there, right? Coming in here, it feels super awkward because that's not the social norm. But there it is. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it bad. It just makes it the norm. But the thing is, who created the norm? The community. The community. That's why we have pockets. Because in some spaces, all of them can't fit. Where I work, my office space is loud. We yell from one office to the next, but down the hall is real quiet. That norm is different. It could be from department to whatever. So here at Kansas State University, what is our social norm? And the thing that I love about you guys is that you're in a place where you can start making that change. It only happens a few times in a person's lifetime if they get the opportunity, and we're at that. A few generations before you and your generation are changing how workspace looks. Now they call it no-collar workspace. I'm like, what is that? That means you don't have to wear no suit. You don't wear no pantyhose. You wear this and go to work. Just put on some heels, not flip-flops, and you're good, right? That is not a thing. That wasn't a thing. But the generations are changing that, saying, I'm not going to work there or doing this if I can't come and wear this. As an advisor, we stress about it. It's like, we want to be relaxed. You know, I got all these little comments about it. And I'm like, what I'm hearing is that they're not going to stop. We're going to change the norm. And there are people who are fighting us because they're like, that's not professional. That's not this. We're having that back and forth, that conflict, because we're in a time where the influencers are changing and they're deciding what the norm, what is the behavior going to happen. And you are doing that today as Kansas State University students. When it comes to, let's say, diversity and inclusion, we're having this back and forth fight. We're trying to change what it feels like, who's making the influence of what is right and what is wrong. Some people don't feel like it needs to change. We're good how it is. Some people are like, oh, heck no, it's got to change. But sometimes when we say we want it to change, we don't really know what that needs to look like. We want some help. But that's what you need to start doing. Check your assumptions, our micro assumptions that happen. Let's recognize we're in a place where social norms are in the place of changing, and you guys are the ones who have to make the community decision on what is appropriate behavior and what that looks like and how that's going to move forward. And then we got to think about our social capital. Now, social capital is your influence on your spaces. Sometimes you got to lose it. Some people want to keep it. So when you say, well, what does that mean? So if you hear your friend saying, I don't fool with them gays, what you going to say? You going to check that? Or you're not going to say anything about that? Right now, what you're saying is, I don't know if I'm really interested in losing that capital. I don't want to lose that influence. I don't want to be outcasted. I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to be invited. That's human, but the question is, y'all grown enough to have to figure out how you're going to spend your social capital. Some people are like, I'm empty, I'm bankrupt, I ain't got no more capital, people don't want to fool me, but I speak for the people who deserve to be spoken for because they have no voice. And some people say, well, once I get to this position, I will speak up. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that you need to understand what you have in your spaces. Power is a part of your social capital. Influence is a part of your social capital. And when opportunities arise, you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do with that? So I went to K-State, And what I realized early on was a lot of people aren't interested in losing their social capital, especially for someone like me. So I had to like get thick skin, and I was just like, look, I guess I'm gonna have to lose it all on my own. And I would be like, you know what? Don't come to me after a meeting telling me you liked what I said because you didn't stand with me when it counted. Doesn't mean I don't like you. It just meant that you weren't interested in losing the capital. So I can't ride with you.
Time for the speakers expires. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Armstrong.
I move to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
It's been moved and seconded. Extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes. If there are no objections, you have 10 more minutes.
So as we think about this situation, I didn't want to make it about the incident because I think that the incident is something that I'm not really able to process. But I knew that I wasn't able to fully embrace it because I was like, I don't want to focus. I didn't have the space to focus on the individual because I was so concerned about the community. And what does that mean to the community, right? Like I had to make a decision. But then I was like, but I can't stress out about that. So I'm like, okay, that's what I want to bring to this space. Because in my email, it was like, you know, as a Black community, can we talk about what that might feel like or what they're experiencing? And I was like, I mean, well, we could talk about it, but I'm like, let's talk about how we feel like we have to be perfect to be validated by our white counterparts that we deserve and belong here. So I got two conversations that have to happen is, why do we, Black, people of color, marginalized groups, feel the need to be perfect to validate another group? And then on the other side is, are there people who are in violation of generalizing? And when one situation happens, that becomes a general census, and that is only for particular groups. Why? And can we talk about that? When you hear, I have to be the only person in the room, I don't feel like I belong, whatever. Is it really because a person doesn't want to be by themselves? No. I think it is more so like the barrier of entry is so high at this institution that I have to flex who I am in order to feel like I fit in. For those who are business majors, barrier of entry, it's a competitive advantage. But is it really an advantage when you talk about community? Is there a reason why we have people who graduate and leave and never want to come back to Manhattan, except for those who look like a different person because they love and miss Manhattan because they fit in? What's the barrier of entry? And who controls that? We do. When you see someone who's not from your space, how open are you to bring them in? Or is it their responsibility to get in where they fit in? How are we helping? We all know what it feels like to go into a space where we are not like, you know, the norm. Y'all know I go to a lot of stuff. I'm bold now, but I wasn't in the beginning. But it was a person who just kind of guided me into the process. I didn't walk in like, let me tell you how to make this work, because that's offensive. But they made the barrier a little bit lower. So then I was okay, and I came back, and then I started to ask questions that I felt comfortable asking because they knew me enough to not make the assumption that I meant malintent. That's not automatic. Just because you show up doesn't mean that you get the automatic ability to ask whatever you want to. You You have to earn that. It's called trust. Gotta check you out first. And you'll know when you have it. And you'll know when you thought you had more of it. But what's K-State's entry? And it's hard when you make it high, and then you add assumptions on it, and then you add your own social norms on it, and then you say, well, why weren't you successful? Why don't you want to stay? Because I got to flex too much. I got to challenge assumptions too much. The barrier is too high for me here. I'd rather try somewhere else and see that. So you want to fix it? Let's address that. Let's all address it. I have questions.
All right, are there any questions for our speaker? Senator Adams.
I was wondering if you could mention which book you had talked about early on when you started.
Yeah,
What was it called?
Stamped from Beginning by Ibram Kendi.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a book club. We meet on November 13th. We're on Section 5, but you can still come. It's good. The library has 2 copies on reserve if you're interested. It's pretty thick. I listened to the Audible. It was really good.
All right, further questions? All right, if not, thank you so much for coming in. All right, we'll start moving pretty quick with our agenda tonight. We'll now move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Senator Wilhelm.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the minutes. If there are no objections.
I object. I'm going to move to recess for 10 minutes.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as read. If there are no objections. All right, the minutes are approved. Senator Cole.
Okay, I'm going to move to recess for 10 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is a debatable motion. All right, it's been moved and seconded to move into a 10-minute recess. Senator Cole, you have first right to debate.
It's not a debatable motion.
Is it a debatable motion?
No.
Let's all look on our handy-dandy name tags. All right, we will move into a voice vote on the motion to recess. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay. Division.
Any abstentions? All right, in the opinion of the speaker, the nays have it. Division has been called. All right, the nays have it. Do you rescind your motion?
Yeah, I'll rescind.
Okay. The nays have it, so we're going to continue on with the agenda for this evening. And we'll move into announcements. 2 announcements. 1, if anyone would like to be involved in the SGA Attorney General Selections Committee, please let me know by tomorrow. 2, Senate next week will be in the Alumni Center. Please pay attention to this announcement. We'll be in the Alumni Center. We really encourage everyone in this room to be at the Alumni Center at 5:15 for pizza and politics, and then Senate will follow at 7:15 in the Alumni Center ballroom. Quote of the week this week, I want to touch on, in honor of Diwali, and what Chair Kulkarni describes to me as the Christmas of India. We have a quote of the week this week that is, "It is better to light one lamp than to curse the darkness." That is unknown. So with that, we'll now move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? All right, seeing none, are there any directors' reports? Speaker Pro Tempore Arnold.
I just want to say that I'm taking money and applications for name tags until 8 a.m. on Monday. That's it.
Questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Arnold? Senator Hildreth.
Do you only accept cash?
No, you can Venmo me also. It's on the application.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, are there any more directors' reports? President Keel.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate everyone being patient with tonight as we have some very difficult but very needed discussions. I want to remind everyone it is only 8:50, so please don't be in a rush to get out of this room tonight, because the conversations that we're going to be having here are extremely critical to not only our campus community, but this organization as a whole. And I hope you take that with as seriousness as we've taken the last 2 hours. The speech from Dr. Elmore, as well as the questions from Dr. Bosco, were greatly appreciated. And I think now we have a chance as SGA to either let the incident that's happened this week divide our campus community and create further division among our students, or recognize the fact that there are students that feel unsafe even when there's not an incident on our campus. And it's taken an incident for us to have this conversation in the room, which is exactly what we said wasn't going to happen last year after all of those happened. So I think that was a wake-up call for all of us, and I hope tonight we can have some conversations about how we're going to move forward and progress as an organization, as an institution, and what we can do to make our students feel safe, and what we can do to change those social norms on the daily, and not just have these very intentional discussions be our only source of that change. So with that, I will turn it over to Ryan, who's going to walk us through our facilitation for tonight.
All right, so if we could we have our 17 facilitators please come to the front of the room? And if you could stand from 1 to 17. All right, so each of these facilitators have a packet that will lead your small group discussion. We're not going to do it, well, we're going to do it during caucus time, but we're not going to break out by college caucuses. So if we could, starting on Parliamentarian Moore, 1. Nathan, 2. Tyron, 4. Senator Estes, 7.
7, thank you.
13.
14. 15. 17.
Corey, 1.
1.
2.
3. 4. 5. 6.
7.
9.
10.
11.
Don't be afraid to speak
12.
up, guys. 13, 14, 15, 16.
17. 1. 2.
3, 4, 5.
6.
7. 8. 9. 10. 11.
I'm going to your project meeting, sorry. 12.
13. 14. 15.
16.
17. 1. 2. 4. 5.
7.
8. 10. 11. 12.
13.
14. 15. 16.
17. 1, 2, 3.
All right, perfect. So if we could now have our facilitators go through and say what number your group is and where you will be meeting based on this chart.
I'm Group 1, Boyd, room 202, upstairs.
I'm Group 2, and we're going to half of CSI.
I'm Sadie Polson, Group 3, going to 204.
I'm Vedant Kulkarni, and we'll be Group 209, Group 4, Room 209.
My name is Joshua Arnoldi. We will be in the other half of the CSI conference room for Group 5.
Lily Colburn, Group 6. We're in 204.
Jordan Keel, 7. We're staying here.
Miranda Moore, Group 8. We're in Union Room 208.
Lacey Pitts, Group 9, and we are going up to 205.
Alan Hines, Room 10, and we'll be back in the viewing area.
Mackenzie McIntosh, and we'll be in Room 209.
Nathan Bothwell, Group 12, and we'll also be in here.
Corbin Slacek, Group 13. We're going to be in the concert room up on the second floor.
Katie Sullivan, Group 14, and we will be in the Bernard J. Pitts room, and we will figure out where that is.
Okay.
Shelby Carpenter, Group 15. We will be in the CSI lobby.
Matthew Ozakowski, Group 16. We will also be in here.
Haley Spellman, Group 17, will be in the Kanza holding.
All right, so before we head out, of course.
Okay, so if you can at least figure out where to get to the like 202 rooms, those rooms, it's right up at the stairs. It's basically above the CSI room, I believe. And so the Kanza is on the left. The Kanza holding area, you have to walk through to get to the main Kanza room. So it's got a bunch of chairs in it. And then the actual Kanza room is like a normal meeting room. And then the pits room is right across from it.
There you go. So we're going to try to keep these discussions at around 45 minutes, if that works with everybody. 30 to 45 minutes. So if we can plan on meeting back here right about 9:45. And if we could exit in an orderly way, maybe starting at group 1. So group 1, it's with Ian Boyd. Okay, you guys can just go ahead and go to your room numbers and follow your group leaders.
Girls hockey right there. My first I teach her in thinking about your customers and your we're trying to be what happened? They just keep him.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I went.
I know the usual icebreakers that we're about. So we'll start with the usual stuff from each other. My name is Maybe just something that you feel about it. I guess I can start. So I'm Matt Wiskowski. I am an industrial engineering and political science center for fine engineering. But I got from Troy, Kansas.
I'm Andy Denny. I'm a junior. Andy. Yeah, I'm a communication and international studies major. Fun fact, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Yeah, out of state. What brought me to K-State? I actually knew Jonathan and Andrew that were and they were CCLA national officers, state officers, and I was an Ohio State officer, so we like met and they kind of talked me into coming my sophomore year in high school. Yeah, so I only toured the school, but yeah, I liked it.
I appreciate what you said.
Yeah.
Giving me a little bit of Oh. It's a farmhouse.
I think a lot of us are hesitant to about it because, well, it seems like my undergraduate experience, I know that has similar insight.
First part,
My program had a lot of anti, I'm not going to go into the situation, Colin Kaepernick, very anti-Trump, as a student body presence of my program, former students.
So we just did name, major, and then just like
And their reaction to that but I had my program, a lot of my classes turn against me, saying, why are you, perspective change? There'll be a lot of people who are against us. But I think someone needs to do it. I'm not going to I don't know who that is. I feel bad. What do we want to be done? We need someone who needs to be
obviously our group here. So I had a really interesting experience. I found that so you know, for us, I made a way. I really like the content every time like campus as a whole. So I guess that's why it's important maybe to us Wednesday and feel, because then we can feel understand how others might. When I came back, I don't want to be personal. I know that when we talk about issues of safety and things like that, we're feeling about it. The overwhelm, I haven't really ever felt unsafe on campus. It's hard for me to understand. I would say that I have to remember that just because I don't feel unsafe doesn't mean at the same time, I guess in regards to what happened tonight, people keep asking for specifics. And this doesn't have, don't have to ultimately I mean, I can agree with that. And therefore, assuming that this that was a lot to do. It is, and I think one of the second areas that I like to use is all of us say personally. I didn't really like how so here. I'm gonna be here working hard. Coming from a small town, do you feel community is a common? I think that's the biggest issue. Not a lot. So I attend a lot of people say
there aren't a lot of people who are hey, I'm thinking.
So, as an interesting perspective in that whenever I'm talking about shit, so we have to keep it out. I thought you see over the time when savings were coming out. So you are this year now being yeah, really bad. No, you're even like this like person or one like where it's kind of hard to it's easy to get distracted and say I feel like it's for me personally I feel like we could do better but we're kind of saying we might be at a fine spot of
really we want to be perfect. We want nothing that slights the.
Right. I know that's not like really it. But you can always like strive for more and more of that family aspect.
Yeah, sorry, it's all brainstorming in my head. I guess going off of what is the thought for me, especially usually when you say about KSD and then coming here, all you hear about is family, but they don't really give us expectations or any like this is what you should do to be a family. And especially when living in the career years and at my position of being at your age, outreach. I think one of the main things that I also see with the IMIT is through the residential halls. There's now single rooms and I don't know, you just don't see that inclusive environment anymore as what I saw my freshman year. And I think that's through a lack of training through the RAs, and that's a lack of training through the staff, especially now that they're all master's students instead of
And
I guess
of those 22,000, how many are two and so, how do you push for your if not everyone? I think that's the biggest challenge that we're gonna have is getting people.
Yeah, and I was thinking earlier too, like just with like the in general, just like how the RAs present themselves. You know, you could be. I don't know how to explain it, but like there just needs to be more training, more responsibility put on to RAs, making the environment more inclusive. That is going towards that family aspect and making sure that everybody is coming together as a community.
Things like that happen.
Especially living in a default.
And it might not necessarily be to that degree, but it's the minute. And I think I wanted people to realize that it's hard, which is hard. It's kind of why I asked the question right around conspiracy. Yeah, he had brought it up. I think that's a big issue is that place of stuff like this. How do we prevent this to happen? Because this is something that we could potentially, but it's the next thing that because we don't know what it is.
What does that look like? Interaction between like students and classroom itself with that center. To go back to your point about like when last year happened, it was highly publicized. The media picked up on it. I think in the timing of it, I think because election was the next day, I think it almost got, from the media standpoint, there was a little blurry mercury. But I don't think there was a lot of time for anyone to really. I think this is probably the first night that I've felt time for healing or time for this.
You like to forget. Yeah. Something else is going on.
And that's what I felt like. And the student group that came and visited, or the student group, I guess we, like that has been brought up before, is a very diverse background. And we didn't take them to the residence hall on tour because it was just a short tour. They had to get back to their home city, and they were like, well, a couple students said, well, we're not going to go back. They don't want to take them to the hall because what they call us. And they're really this is what we expect. So that was a tough conversation. No, this is good right here. True dialogue. Just sessions like this, sometimes people can just get it out. We also talk about we're in a very polarized sector too right now, and politicians are not treating each other with respect. I think we have to kind of do that change. How do we look at that differences? How do we make them feel loved and aware of the profession? How do we make that happen? Whether it's like us as people, as
well, I don't know if Mackenzie McIntosh has been in contact with me about this. I don't know if it was last week. I think it was the meeting before the presentation on the conference and how that presented potentially doing like an online cultural competency training. So I shared with Mackenzie that there are applications and it's within the
Something that I thought a lot about.
department and Yolanda.
Well, I guess
So,
kind of in a role as
I mean, I think,
so not like necessarily leveraging
that's an area to explore.
me as trying to
Cultural competency training, mandatory, just like the ASAP training that you all go through.
I feel like I don't
But I'm hesitant to say that that's what K-State wants.
place that people
They have a lot of
being a good resource. So I think that that is like,
speaking.
that's my
I was
personal.
looking all over the internet to see
Just be somebody that
had
somebody
been
did
regarding how this can't happen, how the president of the Bosworth, some high-level administrator, condemning just hate actions, actions by and I feel like something that simple, even just a tweet,
as leaders,
could have at least brought
to
people
have
and some
wider friends. So it's
even
not
if
like
it is a
everybody is not,
at least
you know,
the message of
death
K-State
of friend,
no
you
place
know,
for
we
giving
don't want such
messages.
So I think really live up to that.
Surprised to
So I had that privilege to be able to and so, you know, we all broke out into different sessions, different higher education. We're all there to give presentations, and that was one of them. Some of the backlash, I feel like I get similarly to like every college has like counseling training, and but they do collect a lot of data on that, and a lot of data. I mean, you can't exactly prove it, but you can see the time saved, and it's very likely that people will click through it, and that's something that whilst developing those programs, how do you make sure that in the facility? And I think perfection. Well, I mean, that's a really good place to start. Is how do I get outside of like having this no? That's I think to me amazing. But the other thing that the breakout session I went to with regards to campuses committing to diversity within the mission statement. No Kansas university has committed to diversity in anything with that. In any of the that's more like and I think that's really I don't know where I would love to start at the top and then feeling safe, I guess. Like that we have the mission statement is like on work and people see, you know, they can't see that as what's overarching, right? Just making sure there's resources. So it's hard because I have no idea what resources are relative for situations like that. For me, I guess like it was.
They talk about institutions that didn't have that.
Sorry, I lost my. Yeah, but so those were. Oh yeah, I guess it's to that end. As far as like Dr. Elmore talked about, like changing social norms. So I feel like that is really part of that as well, is to change the social norms. So like you know like so we are supporting each other. Technically, by your standards, I'm not that person.
I know we do the
Personal victory, but things like that, things like pressure, alcohol, perfect. Represents them back to what you talked about with the positions in the residence halls, changing from professionals to set down to master students. Do you think that has had a negative impact on those individuals' like ability to help people that they're tasked to like their sports or anything? I think
I'd say with the master students,
one thing we
it
talked about was people
gives the residents more of a personal
appeal,
just because they're, I think they're only like 2 years older than me, I'm 21, so I guess they kind of know what we're going through, but at the same time, they don't have that expertise of like, okay, this is how you can help yourself or help others, and that's kind of where like people like counselors or establishing like maybe like somebody, maybe a counselor in each residential would help fix that issue. I'm not sure, but I think the credentials aren't where they're supposed to be right now in resident halls.
Things like
which
that.
sucks,
I think
but yeah.
that's, I won't say integration, but that's what
Okay,
it's.
so you think, it sounds like maybe
Why?
because they're potentially them being closer in age is good. You'll maybe
Yeah, there's like pros and cons. Yeah, there's just, and you know, obviously I wasn't here when I guess when it wasn't the master students working in residence hall, so I don't know how that looked and why they changed it to the master students. But I just think it's might be something to look at.
And like on Wednesday, and though
And
it
then going
seems
back to your
on
question
surface
about like what we can do, this is like super far fetched, but for students who are trying to reach out to people here on campus, if you look at the campus police, there's only one black officer on the team out of, I think it's like 25, 28, 30 officers, and I think if we add more diversity onto that team, it could also bring
because the parents are there.
the students
It's a field
to
trip.
feel more safe
And
to report
our
things
yield's not
or
very
go
good
to talk to them about
because we're not connecting
making
with
laws
one the parents, but also them on
bringing up a
a
conversation
personal level, like
just in
why
general.
they stay.
just to have like, yes,
And
it's true.
on our individual business, they're all people that look like me. And I'm like, to me, that's just not what I would expect from a large physical organization.
Exactly.
I would expect it to
Especially
be a
with
more
not
diverse,
a lot of funding, a lot of
more
budgeting, I guess.
population, and when I go out to places, like especially
That would just have to be like a year-long discussion, I guess.
where is all the diversity?
I know like the university
And
has like
I know we're all diverse in our own mind, or in different areas, but also
things like that. I'm wondering if those
and to me, it's a culture that I don't think that there's in that room on all sections that they're all
but yeah,
but it's like
that would be.
I'm thinking if I'm someone that doesn't look like I don't. I mean, we all can attest to this. I would feel uncomfortable, especially with things that go on. And so I'm like, that's from my standpoint. I'm like, we need to change how we get students here of those areas and get their parents and get them connected. Because when we talk about the pin, talk about family. We got to include their family. And because a 16, 17, 18-year-old, when they come here and they don't see a lot of students that look like them, they're going to be like,
It's incredible how important that is. We talked about, you know, a number of
from my
touching on high school, not a lot of what Indian students, what is everybody personally passionate
most of them came from that language. And so a few of us, you know, are peer cases, and from that,
what are you most passionate about?
That network has grown and grown, so more students, or more parents are feeling more comfortable.
So mine is like mental health awareness, and I think that's really important. And just opening the dialogue on that.
You know, it is not just
around it, you know, so maybe not to like resources as well as giving students the ability to recognize different situations and moving forward. It's not everything to go to a counselor. Recommend other services where that people don't want to go to counselor. Dr. Barnes, we're like, and she was saying, you can't afford to go to counselors that stuff. Giving students the tools on campus to help their friends and help the kids get down. I think that's choir counseling services.
So I guess that maybe ties back into as far as how kids are supported with individuals. That would be in situations where they would need support. That would be one way is to
because you might be
aware of those situations where they would potentially.
I mean, being a minority, but but being a female,
and knowing how to kind of address that. So it's like being aware that counseling services is a thing, and knowing the warning signs for for depression and other mental situations, and knowing how to direct them over. So that would kind of
I don't know an answer.
I was raised here, gone to more than 45 years.
Resources are available on
Something
campus,
I've
for
noticed
example, like
is
the
that
counseling services and stuff like that.
Manhattan,
but
just
also,
as a
like,
town,
like the
only
entry
really
for
focus on
That's
talk about the issues that, we never,
just to like show,
and like, for example, like, Apollo Systems Academy in Manhattan. And the first paper that they gave me was all of the rankings that Manhattan had, all of this, number 5 and this, number 2 and this, number 3. Like, the list just went on, and I was just like, this is great, I'm glad that you are on this list. But what are we doing about the real code? We're not like, and so,
being aware of those resources. So how do we potentially have this, like, as SGA?
oh, we're happy
How do we like
family,
encourage that across everybody? It's like it's easy for us to like have somebody come in and speak on counseling services and say, this is what I do, this is the
dinner
resource,
together, you don't like
this is how to direct them into it. But like outside of this body, how do we make it so that every student on campus knows this is where counseling services is, this is what I need to send you and say, hey, I think you should go, go visit or something like that, or say, hey, you're struggling with insecurity, covered as a resource. How do we make it so everybody knows those?
We're not personally. I mean, like, the first thing that comes to mind.
How do we do that in a way
For
that's
like sexual assault training.
is it more personal, progressive, like doing better, and not just all these things are wrong,
At least it's something that they
and they're wrong.
like are aware of.
But like, how do we flip that narrative to be these things are wrong, here's what we're gonna do. They're wrong, and we don't necessarily know what to do, but here's what we're gonna do.
Everyone the opportunity to at least have all the
There's definitely a lot of
resources
things
that
that
be aware of certain
the
things.
state
When like a friend comes
there's
up
probably a lot
to
of
us,
times we don't put this
at least
in
seeing the resources once is aware of
not to say that we can't do it, but
and then that can help
kind of like what do we do when that will hold over.
That's kind of the only thing.
That's a good first thing about it.
Administration.
I was just gonna say orientation enrollment, having someone that like understand there that they're, I know like it's been a while, but like when you first walk in,
Your priorities,
speakers and stuff,
your top priority
maybe
is
like
students. So you would think that, that their top priority would be what are top priorities. My question is, has there been dialogue about that? So, I mean, I can speak to what I do, which is definitely not the other the years since I've been in market. I don't know that that really goes over the Senate. Yeah, and the legislature. We had meetings once a month with the president.
I don't want to like be repetitive, but yeah, it's definitely mental health. Yeah, it's definitely mental health here on campus, but it's also I think people don't realize the severity of what it is right now with mental health and how many people are viewing that they need to see a counselor with food insecurity and the stigma around going into the cover. I mean, if you look at it, it's literally like you're going into a basement and just like looking at the rhetoric of it, it's kind of like you're, I don't know, going into a basement. It's not really that pleasant looking on the outside, and so there's a lot of huge stigma around, well, I don't want to go down there, like I feel like I'm being judged, and I think that could go back to mental health as well as, the counseling services here on campus. I don't want to walk into, my campus and be judged. So I think it's just bringing awareness to mental health and the resources that we do have here on campus, but it's also part of SGA's job to make sure that we have those resources that can be accountable for the amount of people that they need to see.
I'm currently working on it.
Yes. Yeah, so right now, the wait right now is about 2 weeks, but it's been to the point of 8 to 9 weeks. And I just saw an article from one of my friends who's the president of SGA up in South Dakota, and they literally are talking about the same exact thing. So obviously this isn't just K-State, but this is nationwide. And
I remember, I know, I talked
it's just
about
how do we battle it together? How do we get the funding to provide these services for the students who need them?
And I want to just ask
I'm passionate about it.
so they, that's a
That's something I'm trying to make them things like that.
I think that's, do you have more thoughts?
Other classes,
I agree that
I would like to see less silos and more. Diverse student inclusion and multicultural office and all of it is, that's very, and I think with Adrian, we're bridging that gap, but we've got a long ways to go. But I think SGA can help support that. All the programs I think we have are good, but they're disconnected. Like, and so rather than the admissions recruiting side on the forefront, we're always kind of reacting to what they're doing, and we're missing a piece. So I think you all need to know that. Make sure you have more power and like look at listen to here's my recruiting experience. How did I get here? I feel like, especially with our like ambassadors, like college grads, I'm trying to recruit a more diverse population because of that. Like we've got a lot of people that not good for us. That's not tackling our then they take a lot out of it and they can communicate with I don't know if that's an SGA priority, that's my priority, but I feel like SGA can help provide some campus support with that. Our voice and just like educating, like true pedagogy, like education.
I guess I say that because like the newest thing now is engineering is free our humanities higher than my program, so I'm required to do humanities. Not that it's a problem for me personally, but now like every class after me is going to be taking like essentially 2 humanities classes their entire time in K-State, and if they come in with AP credit, they could So I don't think that we should. I think meet a lot of everyone's people, and you're exposed to like different ways of thinking. I don't think it's especially biological anthropology,
Identifying those issues and also knowing
that's maybe something that definitely.
I think student government needs to be not just an advocacy group, but it is for students to be able to in reality, even though we represent all students across the board, but not necessarily students. We know that we are categories, and we aren't going to be able to into every try to be as intimate as we can. There's no way we can.
I think with the security, like we were talking about earlier, and with Dr. Bosco and how he says working with facilities and things like that, and then I sit back and I look and I'm like, they won't use those cameras unless something happens. Yeah, it's not there for safety at all. It's there to, I guess, yeah, exactly, after. And so, we have the Wildcat walk. Yeah, walk. I don't know, and it goes back to like our funding and our budgeting and things like that, but I think that we should have like night walks around the campus. I think I've seen like 1 or 2 walk around, but it's not like an every night thing. Yeah. And and we talked about doing the 24-hour buildings, and most of these buildings on campus are 24 hours. I don't really like that. I think that we should pick a selected few and then easily just lock the doors on all the other buildings. I don't think all the students need that much space, obviously.
It just looked very serious. I think they're strong and would have been like, hey,
I don't know. I'm more of like, let's find an action and go for that, I guess.
So as a community, I feel like we have this, they will, they're going to But maybe it's like maybe a better protocol from all the governing bodies, including things like maybe you come out.
We don't do it. Fighting for social justice. If I keep trying to take it, but you know, and it's like, yeah, I think at some point we have to take steps, and then hope that we set it up such that the next yeah, so I guess like to that end, you know, things like that. I said, okay, we'll increase the you know, we talked about changing like the social norms. You know, this is we shouldn't be campus active, but like, you know, that's maybe a short-term solution. What else if it would, you know, encourage the right to you know. Yeah. I guess I might be just thinking now. But actually, our administrators are, that's interesting because
maybe not.
I mean, as you say,
there's different, like the power of and how things spread quickly. I think that
we're on campus tonight.
Our system probably is set up to get that message out because, you know, typically it comes on news broadcast. There's already,
I don't know which way.
Yeah.
So it already disrupts.
I'm thinking of like people who are not on campus.
Situations, because
Coming into the building, especially if you're by yourself and you walk into a 24-hour building facility wanting quiet hours, you know, you're probably going to be faced with something that's going to be bad, more or less.
Because of so that was the thing.
Yeah.
Very, very well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like during the day.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like spreading the outreach of this idea is huge. That's other thing. What do they do? Every thought. Then the responsible thing that we pay every disaster. Bring back up this is like so there's a lot of 12 million agencies of it, but 12 or 16, I guess. One that I would go to. We were just
It is a catch-22. Dean Hospital, his discussion up here, talking about the stuff that was done and furthering our.
So that goes to your point.
Y'all's thoughts are on that.
That should be unique within our culture. Like, this is how we act on situations that mean a lot.
We are doing
instead of like being like fearful, like, no, this isn't right. Even if they find out that someone did it to themselves, but that should be a message to us. Obviously, maybe that's happened to this person, if that was the case, or like, and they're just trying to say, you know what, I need that. You know,
just talking about like intercultural mindset.
Okay.
Whatever is on campus education on these matters. So like whether it's like I think they've talked about universities doing so that things what was the risk if you don't ask don't know what was the response in the US? You know, in the course, probably not likely. Hey, there's a trade-off. You know, something like that. So like that's something that I think is
the public relations society about
maybe even like Wildcat Dialogue, or the other thing this year, the College Diversity Summit. what do you guys think about cultural learning like that? Is that a viable Senate for us? Is that going to help?
I'm intern coordinator, so like I think too, like right, so I just think it's funny. So I feel like,
what do you think as far as like?
I think things okay, that was like good. So yeah, they like it's good, you know, for the people who come. But like literally, I like go back to the assessment first, because like I'm sure there are tons of people. There are times where I wouldn't have done it, like just because it takes a little while. To really see value in it. So I think something with like
Senate, the way
like for instance, like the
box together schools. I was wondering, what about student organizations? How do you bring, like, especially like, when we talk, like when I look around the room, I'm like, Asian, and yet there are more of us. So I wonder, is there a way to get multicultural student organizations involved? If that's like being, having like a position of liaison between SGA, because it's also good for them to know.
Well, I guess digging into that a little bit, it sounds like you're saying that we do want people to go quality at this point, like at least in the sense that like everybody should be exposed to
anything that
then we can go on later.
Yeah, like I think getting just to the base level for everyone does a lot of good as opposed to getting X%
for a student to miss
70% grade.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, one of those. Like this is what culture is. This is how people.
Very much so. Like this is especially because like coming from a small town, there's 120 people in my high school. I was culture shock by it. It was definitely just like walking like the class on campus I saw. Just lots of different people groups that I was exposed to on a daily basis where it was boundary Jesus. So it's like so I think just getting like that baseline for everyone understanding is a great start. And things like broadcast platforms start being able to have more quality conversation and bringing dialogue deeper and make it not just I think for students like the icing
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask. Sorry, I'm but I'm curious with all this stuff recently as well. So maybe like coming from that, it's like you said, like you weren't exposed to potentially like diverse cultural perspectives. Growing up, so then coming here to K-State, this was kind of our first experience. So to that end, I guess like when we talk about intercultural learning and stuff like that, it's like, do you think the problem is that people aren't exposed, or that they don't want to be exposed? For somebody like, I guess I'm thinking, for example, somebody like yourself, you haven't had experience with diverse cultural perspectives before coming to K-State. You're exposed to them, you want to learn more. Like you start to like seek out those opportunities then because you've been exposed to them that whole time. So like, and frankly, I guess I don't think how you think about that. Do you think that kind of fixes it then? Is to say that like it's not necessarily that people don't want to like interact with other cultures. It's just that they just don't know. They just need like that first step. Pursue it.
Very much so. I would say like for me, so taking intro business class. I think you need students that are already there. Okay,
because there's no way that there's a
that's pretty much like
not just some
given some stuff like that.
So that gets actually next to how to talk about how like we were kind of initial marketing of it. We were kind of starting to first interaction. We had no idea who was still interested in this. And well, I actually know, I guess, most classes, obviously not very course differences. They were around
what can we tell them that they're gonna want? I guess, you know, the vast majority. That time was like, I think just educating people on like, again, I guess like you're saying, like, what is culture, like what is culture like in K-State? But you also have to be willing to be evaluated, not just, for us, we just focus on like civil education, not knowing members are the biggest thing for us. I think there are other podcasts that we do how we do but I think that having giving everyone some sort of starting place. Moving forward, a good addition to that. Not because of your experience like talking to people like in your intro business classes.
I think you say that people have to feel like playing the world well. So I feel like, you know, because I was actually feeling really how to pursue
those extra opportunities to work on. So like that was a required course.
And so, I mean, it's,
yeah, so talking about their natural business in terms of sharing their personal experiences with that.
I thought,
you know, that's kind of like what to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've been at Tennessee and prior when I was over here. So, but like, I think it's just getting kind of the ball rolling and other students and then us extending that into.
Are you more on the side or just like on that? I think the best example of that is being more specific. I've known him since he was a freshman. This presentation before I was on like science coaches on the aspect of like something before you even came to K-State. Really wanted to be on the other side of this presentation. However, there was he was going to get really involved in it. But there was no thing about the rest of him. So and so he obviously told me all the way like program just changes, but I definitely started that in the right direction. Barnes is obviously the right place to come up to these organizations. And I remember I knew him pretty well, but I didn't know him that well. While walking through the universe,
I guess like what you said with the Wildcat dialogues, like we have these conversations open to anyone, but really the only people who are going to show up are the ones who are wanting to help the situation or those who are aware of the situation.
From that, he's taken that project, probably the one that
yes, exactly, of that conversation. And so when we look at, is this helpful? I think it is, but only if we make it kind of in a way that they made the English curriculum here. I don't know if you guys remember English 100 or if you had to take it, but all of the problems were around social climate and things of that nature. And so in researching that, and so I mean, in the time I was like, I want to pick my own topics, things like that, but at the end, like, it forced those people who didn't want to talk about it to talk about it. And so I was talking to Jack about this. We had like a mental health meeting and maybe integrate the Wildcat dialogues with social climate, with mental health, with all the issues that are going on here on campus, and making it mandatory for freshmen at least when they come in. And maybe it just like starts off as a pilot event within the resident schools. I think testing out or training like a system that will work, but I think the dialogues are great as long as we get the people who need to have that conversation to come.
So like I said, I don't think this is it's kind of the same, but it's just the same deal here as far as like making it like quantity over quality or something a little bit. Like potentially sacrifice quality, but we're also we're getting just in regards to just on an outside perspective.
And I guess when it goes back to like the family and what we talked about earlier about like you know we talk about family all the time, but we don't have expectations. That can be I need to fix that expectation and help make family have a meaning. Also to
Jordan's reason Aaron's reason and pretty much if they're just going to Canada and their whole work and honestly like I think that's the hardest thing. They're like, oh my course is this I don't know that way. It's just
We pride ourselves in the past. Maybe I don't have this.
Oh, hey, I meant to send you an email, but we real word. So, oh my god. I'm I can't go there.
63 is the move.
I did, it was so good. I'm like, actually, I don't know.
I'm ready for you.
That's pretty good. I feel like every single time.
I mean, I'll be right. Yeah, try out this song.
All right, Senate, if you could go ahead and take your seats, we'll go ahead and get finished up with the agenda tonight. All right, so thank you all so much to contributing to those conversations tonight. I really think it's important, and we're going to be sending out some follow-up information to get from you all in the form of surveys, so that we can see how effective this was in kind of contributing to progress, I guess, at this university. So now we'll move into approval of minor allocations. Bill 32 is a travel allocation to the American Institution of Architecture students. They requested $500 and were recommended $500. Bill 33 is a travel allocation to Blue Key National Honor Society. They requested $400 and were recommended $400. Is there a motion to approve the minor allocations? Caucus Leader Heatherman.
I move to approve the minor allocations. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minor allocations. If there are no objections, the minor allocations are approved. We'll now move into final action. Will the author of Bill 34 please come forward? Senator Cole. This is actually final action.
Legislation. We're fine. It's been a long time.
All right. Have any changes been made?
Yes, all changes have been made. Is this on?
Just yell.
Okay, all changes have been made. There was a change made to the last whereas clause, but it was more for verbiage and it's not changed the spirit of the legislation. So the legislation in front of us is a continuance of the Campus Entertainment Fund for $150,000 for the next 3 fiscal years. Another adjustment that we did from their past legislation was change the definition of a major event to anything over $25,000 to anything greater than or equal to $20,000. And the reasoning for that was to give them more access to artists and entertainers who fall right in that $20,000 to $25,000 range, so that they would also be allowed to come to campus where they were restricted before.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our author? All right, seeing none, is there any other debate? All right, if not, we'll move into a roll call vote on Bill 34. Senator Cole.
Can I move to both roll call bills 34, 35, and 36?
I would save your motion for bills 35 and 36 because 34 is a little bit different than the rest of them. It's a privilege fee contract, not a travel allocation.
Cool.
So now we're going to move into a roll call vote on Bill 34.
Adams, Albers, Armstrong,
Yes.
Arnaldi,
Yes.
Belk, Bergston,
Yes, by proxy.
Bothwell,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
DeMoranville, Dunfield, Esses,
Yes.
Fang,
Yes.
Filbert, Gammon,
Yes.
Gillian King,
Yes.
Grover,
Yes.
Gupta, Hammond,
Yes.
Harp, Heatherman,
Yes.
Hildreth,
Yes.
Huffman,
Yes, by proxy.
Javin,
Yes.
Karamali,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Kulkarni,
Yes.
Leverett, Murray, Marshall,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes, by proxy.
Neatery, Orth,
Yes.
Orzakowski,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Porter, Riffle,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spellman,
Yes.
Spencer,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tile,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes, by proxy.
Thompson,
Yes.
Chumlin,
Yes.
Wessel,
Yes.
Wilhelm, Whitmer,
Yeah.
and Yogan are done. And going back, is there anyone I missed? Belk.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else that I missed? All right. The vote passes 41-0.
All right, now we'll move into Bill 35. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No, everything's good.
All right, first right to debate.
All right, so this is for the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, and so they're going to a really great conference. They're basically going to learn some hands-on skills from industry professionals, so it'll be really great for them, and they'll bring a lot of knowledge back to the college.
All right, are there any questions for our author? Seeing none, is there any more debate? All right, if not, Senator Cole?
Now, can I motion to
Yes.
both roll call 35 and 36?
Can you make your motion one more
I
time?
move to both roll call 35, bills 35 and 36. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to hold bills 35 and 36 for bulk roll call. If there are no objections, bills 35 and 36 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 36 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No. they're
First
all
right to debate.
All right, so this is another really great conference. They're basically going to learn the history and doctrines of multiple religions, which is going to be really interesting for them. And also, they're going to learn how to deal with like people with anxiety, depression, and so it'll be really great for them to bring back all this knowledge to campus.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Is there any further debate? All right, if not, we'll move into a bulk roll call vote on bills 35 and 36. Please vote by saying yes or no to both.
Adams, Albers, Armstrong,
Yes to all.
Arnoldi,
Yes to both.
Belk,
Yes to all.
Bergston,
Yes to both by proxy.
Yes
Bothwell,
to all.
Bowen,
Yes to all.
Brown,
Yes to all.
Carpenter,
Yes to all.
Cole,
Yes to all.
DeMoranville, Dunfield, Esses,
Yes to all.
Fang,
Yes to all.
Filbert, Gammon,
Yes to all.
Gillian King,
Yes to all.
Grover,
Yes to all.
Gupta, Hammond,
Yes to all.
Harp, Heatherman,
Yes to both.
Hildreth,
Yes to all.
Huffman,
Yes to both by proxy.
Javin,
Yes to all.
Karmali,
Yes to both.
Kidd,
Yes to all.
King,
Yes to all.
Kulkarni,
Yes to all.
Leverett, Murray, Marshall,
Yes to both.
Morgan,
Yes to all by proxy.
Neatery, Orth,
Yes to both.
Orzakowski,
Yes to both.
Pelton,
Yes to all.
Penny,
Yes to all.
Porter, Riffle,
Yes to both.
Roman,
Yes to all.
Smith,
Yes to all.
Spellman,
Yes to both.
Spencer,
Yes to all.
Sullivan,
Yes to both.
Tile,
Yes to all.
Taylor,
Yes to all by proxy.
Thompson,
Yes to both.
Chumlin,
Yes to all.
Wessel,
Yes to all.
Wilhelm, Whitmer,
Aye to all.
and Yogunadun. Okay, bills 18-1935 and 18-1936 pass 41 to 0 to 0.
All right, we'll now move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion to consider Bill 37? Intern Glasscock.
I move to consider Bill 37. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 37. Will the author please come forward? Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that all further authors be allowed to summarize.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to allow the authors of Bill 37 and 38 to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Oh, cool. So, this is Bill 18-1937, so it's the Collegiate Cattlemen's Club. So basically, they're going to their KLA convention in Wichita, so their biggest thing is they deal with beef, so that's fun. So they're going to learn all about that, and they're going to bring it back to campus. The biggest thing is that they're going to like basically be able to influence like policy in the beef industry, so that'll be kind of fun. And basically, so when you're looking at like the request amounts, they obviously requested like $1,254.64. The max we can give is $1,000, so that's why that amount stands.
All right, any questions for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 38? Caucus Leader Heatherman.
I move to consider Bill 38. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 38. Will the author please come forward?
All right, so this is the Institute of Industrial Systems Engineers, and so basically they're going to their regional conference, and they also have a paper competition which allows their undergrads to present research, and basically it's a national competition where they can show how great K-State is, and also it allows them to do some like industry tours, which will be really interesting, and then they can bring that all back and influence the industrial engineering program. And then again, they requested $1,700, but the max we can give is $1,000.
Are there any questions for the author? All right, if not, we'll move into second open period. Are there any speakers for second open period? Chair Spellman.
I know it's been a long night, so I'll make this short. But if I can have all of the members of Governmental Relations Committee and everyone who helped make Party at the Polls happen, can y'all stand up? Big thank you to these people. Essentially, we planned Party at the Polls in about 2 weeks, and I pushed these guys so much. From 10 o'clock meetings the night before to chalking 6 a.m. on Tuesday. There were 3 people that showed up, plus myself. And we had a couple stragglers that showed up later.
Katie.
But we couldn't have done this without you, so big thank you to those people. At the party itself, I guess this is a little high. At the party itself, we had about 60 students showed up, so it was a K-State 360 event. I swiped 58 cards. I didn't get all of the students that showed up. So between the students that I didn't get swiped in and the people that showed up, just kind of community members or stragglers, I think we had about 120, 130 people show up. So for this being the first year to throw Party at the Polls, that was a pretty awesome turnout. We had a ton of food, on the spot performed, so entertainment was a lot of fun, had little side games. But we also paired up with Student Foundation. So if you see a member from Student Foundation or if there's anybody else in this room, give them a big thank you as well. From National Voter Registration Day and from Party at the Polls, the biggest focus of GR this semester was to get like voter turnout, get people registered to vote and to get them to show up on election day and vote. Back in 2014, about 13,000 people in Riley County voted. In 2018, almost 18,000 people voted. So that's pretty rad. That's really awesome. So thank you for all of you guys that helped get people registered to vote. The last little part that I have is going to be for the feedback. So for those who attended Party at the Polls and who had their IDs swiped, I sent out a mass email today with a Google form. Basically, if y'all can fill out that form, give Party at the Polls a little feedback. Let us know what went right, what went horribly wrong. I want to hear from y'all. I'll end with GR, people in the committee. If y'all can stick around for a couple minutes after Senate. I know. I see you, Jonathan. It's been a long night, but it'll take 2 minutes. That's all I got. I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for Chair Spellman? All right. If not, if we could recognize the committee again for being SJ members of the week as well. I forgot to announce that earlier. Thank you. All right. If there are no further questions, thank you, Haley. Are there any other speakers for second open period? All right, if not, I want to make one more quick announcement, really important announcement, and I want it to be overlooked. Senate next week is going to be at the Alumni Center. Pizza and Politics is at 5:15 at the Alumni Center, so please go to that, and then please stay for Senate following, which is going to be at 7:15. Questions? Senator Cole.
Who all is going to be at the Pizza and Politics? I think K-Board is going to be there, right?
Thanks, Lacey.
Yeah. Wait, who said no to that? Blake Flanders, who is president of KBOR, Matt Casey, who's the government relations director for KBOR, and then Dennis Mullen, who is a current regent for the sports regions, will be there. And they'll be giving input on our current issues in Kansas higher education and what we'll be pushing for during the 2019 legislature. Everyone should come. It's going to be great.
And then also our Chief Governmental Relations Officer, right? Sue Peterson is going to be our open period speaker for Senate. Coordinator Bothwell.
And then that is taking the place of the intern meeting next week. So interns, we don't have a meeting. That's the meeting. It's Pizza and Politics. It's on your schedules, but just a reminder.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. We'll now move into reference of legislation. I just want to mention that the last two bills we consider tonight, 37 and 38, are going to be referred to the Travel Allocations Committee. We'll now move into second roll call.
All right. Adams. Albers. Armstrong.
Here.
Arnaldi.
Here.
Belk.
Here.
Bergston. Bothwell.
Here.
Bowen.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
DeMoranville. Dunfield. Esses.
Here.
Fang.
Here.
Filbert. Gammon.
Here.
Gillian King.
Here.
Grover.
Here.
Gupta. Hammond.
Here.
Harp. Heatherman.
Here.
Hildreth.
Here.
Huffman. Javin.
Here.
Karmali.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
King.
Here.
Kulkarni. Leverett. Mari. Marshall.
Here.
Morgan. Neatery. Orth.
Here.
Orzakowski.
Here.
Pelton.
Here.
Penny.
Here.
Porter. Riffle.
Here.
Roman. Smith.
Here.
Spellman.
Here.
Spencer.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Tile. Taylor. Thompson.
Here.
Chumlin.
Here.
Wessel.
Here.
Wilhelm. Whitmer.
Here.
And you'll got it done. All right, there are 37 senators present, 5 senators excused, and 13 senators absent.
All right, with that, I'll now look for a motion to adjourn. Chair Kulkarni. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting till same time, same place next week. If there are no objections. Wow, I'm so dumb. 7:15 Alumni Center next week. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.